Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jared Farrell. I am a lead client advisor here in Global Reviews, and I'd like to thank you and welcome you along to this session this morning where we are going to be talking about the UK motor insurance. And I'm going to be going through some data from two recent studies that we conducted towards the final end of the third quarter here in 2015. So these two studies, one which runs on our desktop, which is called our desktop sales effectiveness, and another one which runs on mobile, called the mobile sales effectiveness, looked at the sales effectiveness journeys of some motor brands within the UK and how they are facilitating meeting the needs of customers as they are looking to buy from different providers in the UK motor insurance marketplace. So this data is very recent, and I think we've lots of interesting things to share in this session this morning. We're going to be 30 minutes in length, and typically how we do this is I'll fly through the slides, I'll go through some insights from this current data, and then at the end, if you have any questions, you can send them through the chat feature and I'll answer any questions that anybody might have. So thank you very much again for coming along this morning. I'm going to start off at the very beginning with some key information, some key data from these two studies, and then I'll talk a little bit about who we are in Global Reviews. So the first one I'm showing you here is some key findings across 6 different brands in the motor insurance industry in the UK, and what I'm comparing here are the mobile journeys against the desktop journeys. So I'm going to go into how we measure these different journeys in a moment, but the first thing I'd like to look at really is who's doing well, who's not, and where are the gaps. So straight away we can see at the very top that Aviva is really leading the field. In many industries that we measure, so we also look at energy, sports betting, financial institutions and lots of different things in that area, including credit cards, personal loans and things like mortgages, we typically see a bunching at the top in terms of the different types of providers and how they're performing. So one of the key things which jumps out of this particular slide for me is that Aviva really are tearing ahead in comparison to many of the other competitors in the marketplace. We can also see then that for some brands there really is a big difference in terms of how they're doing on their mobile journey in comparison to the desktop journey. And so Quote Me Happy would be an example, and so would swiftcover.com, where in both cases the mobile journey is really underperforming. So we have data on lots of different brands in the industry, and so I'm just pulling out the stories from these 6 brands and demonstrating how we in Global Reviews deliver consumer insights to our clients. So how do we do this? In Global Reviews, we have a proprietary funnel methodology that we use for measuring the pathway to purchase for consumers that they're looking to buy online. That starts at the discover phase, where we are measuring how attractive you are for customers looking to buy motor insurance, so prospective customers who are in market looking for a motor insurance provider. We then move into the consider and act phase, where we're really now trying to measure how easy is it for them to buy from you online. And so that's across any device. We measure mobile experience, we also measure desktop and tablet experience as well. So this particular session was themed the digital and mobile sales effectiveness session. So we really are going to be focusing on these 2 phases in the overall journey, the pathway to purchase. So who are Global Reviews? We are an international digital consumer analytics and competitor intelligence provider. We have been in operation since 2000. We were founded in Melbourne in Australia, and in 2006 we launched in the UK, and we are working with some of the largest brands around the world in key industry verticals, which I've kind of mentioned already. So we have sports betting, energy, insurance, financial institutions. So that means that we also look after stuff like health insurance, home insurance, motor insurance, travel insurance, life insurance. We also look at things like investments and many other industries like further education as well. So because of this, we are the largest behavioral syndicated program provider in the world, and on an annual basis we are measuring the journeys of 50,000 in-market consumers across over 500 brands worldwide. We are operating in many different countries and jurisdictions around the world. So from a continent point of view, we are in the US, we are in Europe, and we're also in Australia and Asia. And specifically then some countries then on the screen in front of you, you can see Australian, Spanish, Italian, UK and Benelux areas. How we do what we do is really underpinned by a scientific measurement framework. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail, but essentially the key message at this point is that it is a blended methodology, which uses both quantitative and qualitative, but also uses user experience and then best practice audit in terms of what customers are looking for online. In this particular program, the sales effectiveness program, that consider and act phase breaks into three different stages. And so those six different stages. Those six different stages are on screen in front of you. And really what we're measuring is how the customer actually interacts with the website as they're going through all of the different stages that they would go through when they're looking for a provider. So that is initial engagement when they first reach the website. How good a job does the website do in terms of talking about the value proposition and whether the website actually communicates that it will meet the consumer's needs, all the way through to the final application form at the end. Consumers will complete up to 4 or 5 different tasks as they're moving through the process, and we measure their success as they complete those tasks and then also ask them about how they got on. I'll talk a little bit more about the methodology in a moment, but as you can see, the brands on screen underneath are the brands that I'm going to be talking about, and the 6 different steps that we have on the screen divide into the consider and act phase in this particular breakdown. So the first 4 are the consider, and then the last 2 are the act, where we're looking for them to actually start completing the process in terms of putting in their details to complete the application. One thing which is very important to note at this particular stage is that we remove price from the equation. We are creating everything equal by removing price from the equation, and so therefore it really is a true and honest benchmark of the performance of the different providers in the marketplace, because all things are essentially equal. So what are the components that go into the digital sales and the marketing sales effectiveness studies that we do? There are 4 different data streams that go into it. The first one is customer behavior. This is where we ask them to complete tasks, and we measure their performance in completing those tasks as they move through the site. So success can be through the basis of the number of clicks, how long it takes to complete them, and essentially we're looking at the pathways and how they're getting to actually the pages that they need to in order to be able to complete the task. The second thing that we're looking at is we're looking at customer attitude. We're measuring expectation prior to completing task, and then we're asking them about their satisfaction and opinions having completed certain things on the website. The third thing we measure is the customer audit. During the process, we will put pages from your brand on your website up in front of the customer, and we'll ask them to actually rate things like navigability, look and feel, and content. And we conduct every year large studies within market consumers where we look at the different types of things that are important to them when it comes to buying something like motor insurance. And so that's how we know what different types of pages that are really important, like product detail pages. How does the sales or quote funnel work in terms of helping them find a product range? So finally, I mentioned that Global Reviews was founded in 2000, and since then we have been running benchmark best practice studies where we've been looking at putting together a list of the different elements that make up best practice on sales journeys across the world in multiple industries. So we have 500 different data points that we measure in a Boolean type system, and we look at whether your site is providing it and whether your competitor's site is providing it. A perfect example of this really would be something like web chat, and whether web chat is being used to support both the sales process but also for helping customers to find information if they can't within the product range that'll bring them through to the next step, or it may be on the application stage where they actually are looking for more contextual support in terms of being able to complete the process. So this is a layered approach in terms of the methodology. All of the results from these 4 different data streams are brought together and combined to essentially create what we call the customer experience score, which is this final result. One very important thing to point out at this point is we've seen the 6 different stages which are involved within the actual process. But as a customer moves through the website, one step in the process may be more important than the other. And so we need to weight the importance of that step in terms of the importance to the customer as they're trying to complete the process. And so there is a weighting in here as well, which is very important in terms of benchmarking performance. So this final result, this one singular score, is the customer experience score. And that is the score that I showed you at the very beginning in terms of the different brands and how they are performing within the marketplace. So let's get straight into the data then in terms of the desktop specifically, and looking at these 6 brands. How are they performing across these 6 different stages when it comes to providing a customer experience that is easy for customers to buy online from each one of these brands? So there's a couple of different things that this chart in front of us is showing us. The first thing is that within the evaluating options and the facilitating decisions stage, there really is a variance in terms of how the different providers are performing. And then we have the initial engagement score, 42%. We can see that there are some brands that really are not delivering for customers when it comes to building that initial engagement and helping to meet their needs, or certainly appearing to build value propositions and brand trust to take the consumer through to the next stage. We're not going to be focusing on initial engagements in this particular session, but it is important to note that most UX designers, or all UX designers and digital leaders will know that customers, if they can't find what they're looking for quickly, will leave. And so the initial engagement stage is crucial in terms of capturing the customer and quickly showing them that you have what they're looking for, which will move them into the introducing options stage. What I am going to focus on today is the evaluating options stage and the facilitating decision stage, because there is a huge amount of variation here within the different brands, and I would like to know who's doing well in evaluating options and who's not doing so well, and what is it that's driving the scores in these different areas. One final point to just highlight in terms of the actual journey: as the consumer moves through each one of these stages, the tasks will become more complex. At initial engagements, we're looking at, okay, please look at the homepage, don't do anything, just have a look and then answer a couple of questions afterwards. And those kind of questions are things like, does the page look cluttered? Does this look like a brand that I'd like to buy from? The design is easy to navigate, and different things like that. And that's how we're benchmarking at initial engagement. Into introducing options, we're starting to look at sales funnels. We give the person a singular task, find a quote for, and that would be your more type of generic task that you would expect. Evaluating options, though, we're now starting getting into product options, specific type of product things that people may be looking for from your website, and essentially we are putting your website through the paces of people being able to navigate around the website to find those different types of product options. Facilitating decisions, we're starting to look at support, channel selection. If it's mobile, for example, how well are you supporting the mobile journey for people in terms of giving them confidence to actually make that purchase on a mobile? And then application form is what it says on the tin. It's measuring the performance of the application form. So we have this digital customer experience score that I talked about earlier on. But within the data that we have, this digital experience score is a top level score. Underneath the digital experience score, we have multiple layers in terms of how we actually measure the performance of the website. This is very important for our clients because it allows them to get diagnostic in terms of getting down to a very, very specific area of the website which may be causing bouncing or may not actually be driving conversion, whether it be for a user experience or something along the lines of the actual messaging and the marketing. At the very, very top level, we talked about the consider phase or the act phase. Underneath that, we have a stage. We looked at the 6 different stages already. Underneath the stages, we have a category. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the categories. But the categories are essentially the different components which may make up the initial engagement or may make up the stage. We talked about initial engagement already, and so that is meeting my needs and building brand trust, for example, might be 2 different categories within that. But then within the categories, we also have subcategories. And that's where we're starting to get into things like the actual the performance at the user task level, whether the customers were satisfied, and then how does this website perform in terms of the audit criteria from the best practice audit that we bring into the methodology as well. All of these scores roll up to create that singular benchmark KPI, customer experience score. Okay, but right in front of us now, we've got a very, very populated and lots of different things going on in this particular chart. So this particular chart is essentially every single criteria which exists within the whole entire program. And so the key thing about this is that we are measuring across multiple different types of criteria that are important to a customer as they're moving through the journey. We weight some criteria more important than others. And so the horizontal line at the bottom, or the horizontal axis, is essentially the weighting of the criteria in our program in terms of their importance to the consumer as they're trying to move through the site. And on the vertical axis, we can see the actual performance of the brand as consumers have tried to complete and move through the process, as we measure the performance at the customer level in terms of the experience. So the reason why I'm showing you this particular chart is this is how we can very quickly start to pull out information in terms of looking at key pains for clients as customers are moving through it. And we can very quickly hone in on those very specific areas which are causing pain. So one of those things which came out of the previous chart is this idea that some customers will go through the quote tool when they're looking to find a particular type of product that will match their needs. But not all customers will do that. And from recent DME data, which is a marketing effectiveness program, which is a different program, which looks at really how attractive you are. We talked about this discover phase already, and understanding consumer behavior when they're actually pre your website and how your marketing is intercepting them in the right place at the right time and saying the right thing. From that particular program, we can pull out some analytical behavior in terms of whether customers actually want to go to a quote first, or whether they'd like to read about options first and then go for a quote. And so what we can see that there's a variance between the motor insurance industry in the UK and the health insurance industry in the UK. So the variance is interesting to me, but what I'm actually more interested in is the concept of the 36% and the 44%, because I think a lot of brands focus very hard or very strongly on the quote tool and making that as seamless as possible. But there are a proportion of people, a significant proportion of people, who want to find things in a different way, not specifically just through the quote tool. And that is the 36% and the 44%. So the idea being, and what does this particular slide in front of us show us, that they like to evaluate their options. They want to look at the different types of product options that are available to them before they actually go into looking and choosing at the quote stage. So if we look at the evaluating options stage that we have within our program, and we start looking at some of the brands from this most recent desktop study, we can see that AXA, for matching product to needs, comes in the top at 41%. We can see that the industry average, the circle in black, is 30%. And we can see that Admiral are coming in at 19%. Straight away, this tells me that none of the brands are actually doing a very good job in terms of matching product to needs. This element of helping people to actually look at various different product options before they maybe go into the actual quote tool. The second element within evaluating options is comparing product options. We can see Aviva's coming in at 56%, the industry average is 33%, and Churchill are actually scoring 0. The box on screen at the bottom specifically relates to matching product to needs, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on in this particular area of evaluating options. I'm not going to be focusing on comparing product options. So within matching product to needs, we can see the first set of bars is effectiveness of matching needs. This is the actual how many of the users who were testing the website were actually able to complete the task. So at this point, I should tell you that we have between 50 and 20 in-market consumers who go through each individual website. No one user will do a body of research on any brand more than one website. So they only go to one website. They don't go to any other website. And so it really is a true benchmark. Those users are screened as in-market. So when we bring them into the research at the very, very beginning, we screen out those who are not looking to buy motor insurance within the next 90 days. So it really is a very specific piece of research which is looking only at those who are really interested in looking at buying right now. So their radar is on. So we can see, for example, that Admiral are scoring very poorly in terms of effectiveness of matching needs. We can see all of the brands are scoring lowly in terms of efficiency of matching needs, and that's the level and the amount of time that it took them to complete the task. Satisfaction is really how the customer telling us how satisfied they were, and so that's claimed rather than passive behavior, which is coming out of the first two bar charts there. And then we have evaluating of matching needs, and that's where the customers are telling us basically how they would evaluate the process. Matching need content comes out of the best practice audit, and we can see that there are a lot of the brands there that really are not performing in that area. But I'd like to talk about the specific task, and I'd like to talk about Admiral and what actually happened that people weren't actually able to complete the task. So these are the scores, these are the scores from those who tried to complete the task with Admiral. And essentially, we asked the users to find two different product elements on the Admiral site when looking for a motor insurance product. So we can see that the success rate for Admiral is very low, and we know that already, and it's specifically the case when compared against the top performer. We can see the chart on the left-hand side is showing us all of the different types of problems that they had as they were trying to complete the actual task, and up on the top right-hand corner I can see that 90% of those who were completing the task encountered a problem. So that means that 10% actually said that they had no problems at all, and this is really what's indicating the actual level of effectiveness being so low. I have verbatims, I have some voice of customer statements from those who are actually going through the task telling me the reasons why they had problems trying to complete the task. Couldn't find any way of adding this onto the quote, nor could I find it under any of the headings. It was not clearly signposted where I should go to find more in-depth information about types of policies. I couldn't find an option to show me the different cover options, only single and multi-cover cover, not what was actually included without running a quote. It was very unclear where I was to look for the cover required, so we're talking about a signposting issue there, and then not quite clear where to look for the different options. So we can see in the chart on the left-hand side, it took a long time to find the information. The information was not where I expected it to be. And we know from a lot of the studies, and all of the studies really that we run across the world, that one of the most important things to customers when it comes to using a website to find a provider is ease of navigation is absolutely key. And that they can find the information, but also that the information is easily accessible and understandable. So in this particular instance, we can see that the site is really falling down. So if we compare this site then to AXA and the top performer in terms of people trying to complete a similar task on AXA's site, looking for different product options, we know that a much more significant number of people were able to complete the task. We can see that only 40% of those encountered a problem. And on the left-hand side, the heat maps of the users as they were going through the actual site at the time shows me the journey that they took. So the most popular journey on the left-hand side was to click on car insurance, which then revealed a drop-down which had types of cover, which then reloaded a new product detail page which had a side-by-side comparison of the different benefits that were available when looking at different types of product options. And this is where people went to in order to complete the task. And it was literally 2 clicks with it from the home page. The mean amount of time to complete the task was 57 seconds. The maximum amount of time for people to complete the task was 1 minute 57, and then the minimum amount of time is 29 seconds. And some of the other things we ask in terms of asking to evaluate how they get on, we can see mean scores on a 10-point scale. It has a visual design that is appealing, 7.9. The page makes it easy to understand the information that is presented, 8.3. Displays all the information I expect to see to compare insurance options, 8.5. Page is uncluttered, allowing me easily to find information on the page, 8.1, and looks like this page will help me to compare the cover available to me, 8.4. So when you start comparing these scores across all of the different providers in the marketplace, you can see how we can really start to benchmark the performance of the different brands and learn from the best to help those that are struggling to bring their performance up so that customers aren't bouncing off their site and going to a competitor. So I'm going to go to a completely different country now, and I'm going to look at some examples from Coles Financial Services in Australia. The task here for them was to find a car insurance policy which provides one excess free windscreen cover claim and the option to get a hire car after theft. Now, all of the tasks that we create are tasks that can be completed on the site, and they are tasks which are typical that a person may complete as they're going through the process of looking for product options. So the things that Coles that are doing well, and we can see from the heat map, is that their successful journey starts at the content page, and they're providing content information in terms of different types of benefits, really even at the home page. And from there then, with the product details, people are going straight to the quote. Towards the bottom of the home page, you have the summary points that are offered on the home page comparison tables, and it's easier and quicker product differentiation, which helps them to match their needs. One I would caution at this particular point, though, is at the bottom of the different benefits which are supplied is an isolated link which helps to find out more information. But the resulting page after this is not ideal. There's another 10 points, and I certainly wouldn't recommend that as being best practice. However, in terms of completing the task, we have a very high proportion who are able to do it quickly. As we move through to the next stage in terms of actually then starting to complete the quote, we can see how Coles Financial Service are then putting product detail up front for the person as they're moving through the quote process. So this actually makes it easier for them to learn the product information as they're refining their quote as they're moving through the process. And so this resulted for Coles in a significant increase in customers successfully matching products to their needs compared to others within the actual studies. And again, a totally different industry. Now I'm looking at health insurance and I'm coming to Ireland. And in Ireland, we can see Leia Health Insurance, how they are providing a side-by-side comparison in terms of the different product options that are available to them. And they're then providing drop-downs so that you can feed forward information at the top level, but then you can drill down into the actual product details to see the information that's interesting to you. Now, this is an interactive comparison chart, which makes it even better because I can add different types of products because they have many different products in their product set, and I can start comparing the different types of things that are available to me. Leia very cleverly also promote a particular type of product as being the one that they recommend or the value alternative. One final thing that they have is a neat tool on the top left-hand corner which shows differences only. So rather than looking for a simple comparison, I can also look for the elements which make it different. So these are the different elements I was talking about. As we go for a drop down, we click on one of these arrows, it starts to pull out various different types of information in terms of the different type of levels of information that I may be interested in looking for on a product options basis. A key element we're going to talk about later on, and I'm not going to go into too much of it now, is this concept of providing the support information, FAQs, enabling immediate contact, or certainly enabling access to information in terms of general queries is key. It needs to be contextual and it needs to be at the right time in the right place as they're moving through the actual process. But we're going to come to that in a minute. Just as I wrap up this section in terms of looking at different types of product options, I'd like to quickly just summarize. For consumers who read about products first, most are finding it difficult to match products to their needs. And we can see that across most of the brands in this particular study, because we could see that the proportion of people who completed on the AXA site was 55%, and they were the top performer of the 6 brands that we looked at, but that's still 55% could be an awful lot stronger. Effective needs matching is a key contributor to giving confidence and willingness to start a quote, particularly for a different type of cohort, and that percentage we looked at earlier on, who like to look for the product detail options first before they go into the actual quote. Okay, so let's move to a different stage. We said we were going to look at the facilitating decisions. So what are we looking at in terms of facilitating decisions? We have 3 different elements on the top left-hand corner that we're measuring. We have external comparison, we have contacting the company, and we have why choose the company. I've done the same thing again. We have the top performer scores, we have the industry average scores, and we have the bottom performer scores. We have the area which is circled in the box, contacting the company, is the area that I'd like to focus on. We consider the Aviva are the strongest here at 52%, and then the industry average coming in at 24%, Swift cover coming in at the bottom in terms of being at 0%. I'm looking specifically then at the brands in the box in which is showing the bar chart at the bottom of the screen, and this is showing me the performance of the 6 different brands that we're looking at for this particular session. And so I can see that Aviva is coming in at that 88% in terms of providing contact to the company and certainly providing access to general information, whereas SwiftCover are not providing this at all in terms of the desktop experience. So how do we go about this process of providing contact information, and why are Aviva scoring so high? So when we go to the different product detail pages, we can see that different ways in which Aviva are actually providing support. So on the left-hand side in the universal navigation, we have useful contacts. But within the actual product detail page, we also have a number of different supporting ways in which we can get in touch with the company. Those different supporting pieces of information offer different levels of access to the company, and they're all grouped in one place. Important information is also included. like things like when the company is actually available, should we want to get in touch. Sorry, I have a slide build which is missing there. And then also if we have a question, which allows us to search through an archive of different types of questions or answers that people have given, or certainly within the actual FAQ section that's available. And then we have the motor FAQ section. So that's contextual to actually what's happening in terms of the insurance product that I'm looking for from Aviva at this particular point. So moving on to the next stage, the contact details page are well organized to find solutions and specific contact. And this use of iconography in terms of helping people to quickly scan the site to find what they're looking for, because we know that people don't read web pages, they scan web pages. And so our job is to create friction to slow the person down as they're scanning, to help them also then quickly find the different types of information that they're looking for. And that's where signposting starts getting important, and that's where icons can become very helpful. So for Aviva and this particular page that we're looking at, the FAQ section has a function to search the solutions by keywords as well as to browse by topic, and the contact sections also provide the function to find the specific contact based on the product and the topic. So that's a good example of a brand that's doing it well. Admiral are also doing it well in terms of helping to find answers. So the product landing pages provides an FAQ link right below the key call to action button on the top of the page, your answer is answered, and then the contact page provides a tool to get the best contact detail based on the product needs. And again, opening hours. It seems simple, but a lot of brands don't actually do it, and you really do help the customer in terms of knowing when they can actually get in touch. One key thing that I haven't gone into here is the web chat functionality. And of all of the brands that are measured here, apart from AXA, none of them are really supporting that immediate answers, providing a facility for immediate answers to customers. And in a lot of the other industries we are doing work in with our clients, we can see that web chat is fundamentally changing their business in terms of how they're using their contact center, and then also how they're driving people through that sales funnel, as web chat is being used to support sales and not only just things like application. So why is all of this important? One of the questions that we ask in all of our studies is, if this was a real life situation and you encountered problems on a website whilst researching, so specifically whilst researching motor insurance, what would you do next? So the figure that I've highlighted here is the proportion of people who say that they would leave the website and look for another provider. So on both mobile and desktop, we're getting 25%, and the largest proportion of the people who are coming to the site saying they would leave and go to another provider if they couldn't find the information quickly. I talked about the web chat not being really available at the moment in terms of the providers, and it's coming up as being the second most important in terms of desktop for customers when they're looking for support when it comes to a website. So we're going to be moving towards a stage where people are really going to have to start facilitating customers in terms of what they're looking for. So this is just the motor insurance industry. I'd like to have a look at some other industries as well. Is it just motor insurance that it's really important to be supporting the customer? And looking across multiple different industries of different programs that we're running. So we've got home insurance, we've got travel insurance, we've got health insurance, we've got car insurance, and we've got life insurance. We can see the proportion of people who say that they would leave the provider and go to another website if they were not supported in terms of their needs. So we're coming towards the end of the session, and now what I would like to do is I'd like to very quickly just look at mobile. So I talked about desktop on mobile, so we're also running this in a mobile study, and unfortunately I don't have enough time in this particular session to go into the elements of performance of the different brands on mobile, but one of the things that I thought was interesting is if we start looking at an industry average of how the brands are performing on desktops on average of the 6 different brands that we're looking at in this study against mobile. And we can see that there is a difference in terms of user experience. In sports betting, they have gone mobile first. In many, many industries, we're gone responsive design and we're going mobile first, or maybe we're going omni-channel. But certainly we're moving towards this stage where the customer experience on a device should be similar across different types of devices as they move from one place to another to continue down that journey in terms of researching, getting in touch, and then completing the application form. So really, we need to be closing the gap between desktop and mobile in terms of the customer experience. So initial engagement for mobile being at 50% and a 5% difference in terms of the average is something that raises alarm bells. Certainly the introducing option stage at 42% as they're trying to get through that sales funnel, and this is at the most basic level in terms of finding a product which will meet their needs, and we're measuring the performance of the website of showing the product range. Again, that is alarming. So in terms of the different types of things that we were looking at, there's obviously lots more that I could go into. To just conclude in terms of some of the things that we looked at in this session, I think we really need to consider how we support customers who do not wish to start the journey on the quote tool, who like to look at the product options first and then maybe push them more towards the quote tool from those product option pages by making sure that we link straight through to the quote tool. Product information should also be available during the quote process itself so that they can move sideways, or they can look at the different types of product benefits that are available to them within the sale funnel. Providing support and a means for the prospect to contact the company is critical to get right. And then summary comparison with side-by-side benefits can be further improved with interactive comparison tables. And I'm taking that even one step further, and I'm saying that comparison tables which actually allow the consumer to compare one product from one company against your product is really where we would like to get to. And I know that there are lots of various different types of architectural and infrastructural challenges and product challenges, certainly in the insurance industry, because a lot of companies have a lot of different types of products. But essentially the customer is going to the aggregator site because this is the type of information that they're looking for. And again, as soon as they leave your site, your chances of them bringing them back most definitely decrease. So all of the data that I've shown you here, I've shown you from the mobile sales effectiveness study and I've shown you from the desktop sales effectiveness study. What I haven't really gone into is the digital marketing effectiveness study, which runs monthly. The calendar for the digital sales effectiveness is July and January. We run them biannually, and the reason why we do that is it's in line with customers being able to put in place those recommendations that we make, which will help them substantially increase conversions on their site and really drive impact. So I've only really given you a glimpse of the depth and the breadth of the insight. How we work with customers, we have a dashboard where we deliver the data through a dashboard to customers, and they can look at all of the actual results themselves. They can drill down into the actual verbatims, they can look at task effectiveness, and then all of those rolled up scores to benchmark KPIs. We also measure things like customer effort scores, system usability scales, judging the experience, and a lot of the standard metrics which would be KPIs for UX teams when actually measuring customer experience on their sites. We work with customers in terms of bringing the consumer's voice into the actual room through activation workshops, and in there we make recommendations in terms of this is the problem, this is how we can fix it, and here's best practice. Here's someone around the world. It may be in your industry, it may be in another industry, it may be sports betting who are very good in terms of mobile first, it may be banking who are very good in terms of the security and privacy. So that's a real whistle-stop tour in terms of some of the results from our recent DSE and MSE studies in motor insurance in the UK. Thank you very much for coming along. My name is Jared Farrell. My email address is on screen in front of you if any of you would like to get in touch with me directly. And this webinar is also being recorded and will be available for review if anybody would like to get in touch with us, and we can share either the slides or we can most definitely share a link to the recording. So as I said, I'll take a minute just to answer any questions that people may have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute my microphone just for a minute, and then I'll come back online to answer any questions. Okay, thank you. We've had one question in there. And so the question was, if a client gets involved, how do we decide the different companies that are going to be included within the benchmark? Well, actually, the way it works is that when you come on board, you can choose 4 competitors that you want to benchmark yourself against in the industry. And we will complete the same methodology on your site as we will with those 4 companies that you've chosen to be benchmarked against. And when you go into your portal, you will see not only your data, you will also see the data of all of the other different brands that you have asked to be chosen to be benchmarked against. Then what I do, because I'm the client advisor, I look at the results across the whole entire industry, and I work with client advisors in our other offices around the world, and we pulled out insights in terms of what's going on in different industries and what best practice looks like from that point of view. So while you have your 4 in your competitive set, we also look at best practice examples from multiple industries and then multiple brands within your own industry. So thank you very much again for coming along. I'm going to stop now, and if you have any questions, please do get in touch, jared.farrell@globalreviews.com. Thank you.